the catacombs, it's very easy to explain why they're actually located outside the city, because according to Roman law, ancient Roman law, it was not allowed to bury the dead inside the city walls. And it makes sense in a time where, hygiene couldn't be safeguarded, and the Romans did use a lot of water in general in the city, so you had to make sure that the dead bodies were further away. So you would have to exit the city, and you have to exit the city walls, the ancient city walls, and that's where you could actually bury the dead. So that's where the cemeteries were, and the largest cemetery of Rome, the Campo Verano, still is. So that's the modern cemetery. Now, the catacombs were actually naturally appearing holes in the ground or in the wall. You'd have to imagine kind of these mini kind of cliff-looking things around the ancient streets of Rome, and there will be holes in them in the tufa stone. Okay, so the tufa stone is basically compressed volcanic ash underground, and as you know, the Rome has two close volcanoes. They're silent now, they're dormant now, so we don't have to worry about anything. But in as you know, over thousands and millions of years, when you're close to a volcano, the volcanic ash gets compressed underground, and layers upon layers are forming. And those layers of volcanic ash fundamentally were very brittle. And so these holes appeared, and they were very large. So even the ancient Roman already, the richer families, they would use these holes to bury their dead. And the richer you were, the more money you had at your disposal, the more beautiful the tombs would be, right? So you could have sarcophagi, which are basically big marble, fundamentally looking like bathtubs, right? Big bathtubs that you could lay in the dead. You would close them, and then you would have even family tombs. So certain families would have a collection of their family members all buried together. And so the Christians, coming from all kind of backgrounds in Rome, so there were rich ones, there were poor ones, there were slaves, there were former slaves, there were merchants or senators, whatever. They would, according to the financials that they had at their disposal, they would pick these graves and then start digging, and they would make space, right, for their dead. Now, and what we see here then is basically a cross section of one of these digging sites. So you can see how the catacombs go multiple layers down from 7 meters, so that's about 23 feet, to 62 feet down into the ground. Okay, and then they would stretch, and the more Christians got buried, the deeper the Christians dug into these tufa, corridors into this tufa stone. So they're very narrow. Okay, so you can kind of see that here. There's a tiny person also in this cross section that is going down the stairs, and then you have different sizes of so-called loculi, right? So these slabs, and you could imagine, and we'll see this in a moment, but let's stay here for a second. You can imagine the walls left and right being plastered with these holes. So the Christians would dig a tunnel. Oftentimes they would leave holes that connect them to the outside air up above to get air, and also to let water in and things like that. And then you would create these holes on the side, okay, on the side of the wall, to put in the dead. And some of them were covered with marble slabs. Some of them were just closed by mixing tufa and water. So very simple. Okay, it would kind of probably feel like clay. And that's if we were going inside there, like this little person, you would actually be able to scratch stone from the wall. Okay, it's so soft and so brittle that you could just kind of scratch it off with your fingernail. It's very wet still. So and that's also what enabled the Christians to dig down deeper and deeper. It was actually very easy to dig into it. I mean, on the spectrum of the ease of digging into the ground. So anyways, so what we see here then is the cross section, and so I think that gives you a good general idea.